Hello, everyone. To kick off today's episode, I want to start with a bold statement. None of us will ever truly be able to learn well, whether it's in school, through self-study, advancing in our careers, or learning a trade, if we fall into the two traps I'm going to talk about in this episode. If you get caught in them, there's no way out. And of course, I'm going to show you exactly why these two traps are so dangerous for anyone who wants to grow, develop, and actually get good at something in life. This episode is the continuation of our video series about overcoming the feeling of, I'm not good enough yet. So let's dive into the first trap. It's a trap that, if you fall into it, will keep you far away from becoming truly skilled. No matter if it's finance, communication, programming, music, or any other field. Once you get stuck here, you can't escape. What is this trap? I call it the trap of the perfect resource. Sounds a little strange, right? The trap of the perfect resource. So what is it, and why does it stop us from becoming skilled at something? Now tell me if this picture sounds familiar. Let's say you're curious about a subject, maybe investing or business or information technology. You're fascinated by it. You love the idea of working in that field. You want to make as much money as others do. You want to dive in. It's exciting. It's tempting. And naturally, the very first thing you want to do to get started is find the right material to learn from. That could be a book, a PDF file, an online course, a video series. Let's just call all of that resources. You want to find the best one, the most fitting one, the ideal one for you, right? But maybe you've already tried. You've gone through a bunch of materials and realized none of them felt right. Honestly, I know people who've wasted years like this and still never managed to enter the field. Or if they did, they stayed stuck at a very basic, surface-level understanding. And you know as well as I do, if you want to succeed in any field, you have to reach the level of an expert. That's when the real opportunities come, including money. Staying at a shallow level doesn't get you far. So clearly something's wrong here. Why is it that whenever you pick up a resource, a book, a course, a video, you give up quickly? Why do you always feel like nothing is really suitable for you? One's too impractical. Another is too difficult. You can't keep up. One is too boring. Another is too long, too dry. None of them feel right. And so you start believing, maybe there just isn't any resource that fits me. If you've ever felt this way, you've fallen right into the trap of the perfect resource. Now let me ask you this. What exactly is a perfect or ideal resource for you? How would you define it? For example, has anyone here ever tried learning about investing but had no idea which book to read? Every book you picked up felt wrong. You read 10 pages and thought, why is this so confusing? Why does it feel off? Or you tried reading about business and you thought, there's no way I can do this. None of it makes sense. So here's the essential question. What do you think an ideal resource would look like for you? And if you're being honest, it's not easy to answer. A lot of people can't even say. You say you're looking for the perfect resource, but most of the time, you're actually looking for something impossible. I say this with confidence because I've been asked about this so many times, and from experience I can tell you, people aren't searching for the perfect resource. They're searching for the unreal resource, and that's exactly why they stay stuck. Here's the truth. When people step into a new field, they want a resource that's high level, advanced, so powerful that once they finish it, they'll immediately become an expert, maybe even start making money right away. But at the same time, they want that resource to be super simple, easy to read, easy to digest, something that even a total beginner with zero knowledge or background can pick up and instantly understand, absorbing knowledge effortlessly. That's the fantasy, a resource that is both advanced and simple at the same time. But where would you ever find that? Nowhere. That's science fiction. That's impossible. And that's why this trap is so dangerous. If you fall into it, you will never succeed in any field, because that resource does not exist. Truly, it doesn't. So what's the solution? Forget about the perfect resource. Forget about that impossible fantasy. There is no such book, no such course, no such video. We only have one real option. When you enter a new field, you have to start with the basics. There's no other way. Yes, that means beginner materials. And yes, beginner materials often cover the boring stuff. Basic concepts, dry theories. You just have to accept that. There's no other approach. That's the method. That's the reality. You have to accept it. I'll give you an example. I know plenty of people who jump straight into technical analysis and trading. They tried everything, buying flashy courses, following exciting strategies, chasing whatever looked appealing. And most of them ended up losing a lot of money. What happened after that? They had to go back to square one, learning the fundamentals, how to read charts, how to read candlesticks, what each candle actually means. In the end, no matter how far they wandered, they had to come back to the basics. That's the truth. And once that happened, they realized just how much time they had wasted by going in circles. So here's the takeaway. Whenever you start something new, begin with the basics. Always. The most perfect resource for beginners is a beginner resource. Pick up an introductory book. Enroll in an entry-level course. Watch basic videos. That's the fastest and most reliable way to learn. Once you get through the beginner stage, then you can think about what's next. For now, whatever topic you're interested in, go to forums and simply ask people. For example, if you're curious about architecture, if you want to become good at architecture, and you even feel a little passion for it, go to an architecture forum. Ask people something like, "Hey, I'm trying to learn about architecture. Could you recommend me a course or a resource or maybe a book that's simple and easy to understand for beginners like me?" Thank you. And people will point you in the right direction. Or go to book-selling websites, read the reviews under architecture books. You'll find comments saying things like, "This book is simple, easy to follow." Buy those and start learning. Go for beginner resources, be patient, and be a little humble. Because here's the thing, if you keep chasing after advanced, flashy, unrealistic courses, the ones that promise, "Take this and you'll be making millions in no time," you will end up being someone's prey. You'll become a victim of false promises, and the one who pays the price in the end is always you. To actually work in a profession, to build real expertise, to become a specialist, it's always a process that goes from basic to advanced. Nobody can escape that truth. If you don't master the basics, if you don't do your beginner training well, then how can you ever climb to the top? Every profession works that way. Please remember this. The most ideal resource for a beginner will always be a beginner resource. And once you've finished the basics, then you can slow down a little and ask yourself, "Okay, this is where my skill level is at. I know a little now. What's the next resource I should look for?" And you will know, because once you've built a basic foundation, you now have the ability to judge what's good and what's not. You'll be able to see which book, which course, or which video will actually help you take the next step. At that stage, I don't worry about you anymore. I trust you'll know what you need. But right now, many people feel like they can never, ever conquer a certain field. It feels like that field keeps rejecting them. If that's how you feel, then the solution is this. Go back and study the basics properly. Learn the beginner stuff with respect and patience. That's the first trap you must overcome, the trap of the ideal resource. Stop searching for that perfect book. Stop chasing after sacred books or legendary courses. They don't exist. The most sacred book for a beginner is always the introductory book, the one that gives you the foundation and creates the stepping stone for you to move into deeper knowledge. If you don't believe me, just keep going in circles, and one day, when you get exhausted and frustrated, you'll end up coming back to the basics anyway. So why not start there now? That way, you save time and move forward faster. All right, now let's move on to another trap. This one is even more harmful than the first. The first trap, the trap of the ideal resource, at worst, just makes you give up. You don't find the right book, you don't find the right course, and so you quit. That's not too damaging yet. But this second trap, this one does cause damage. And what is it? It's the trap of thinking, "I'm already an expert. I'm already good. I'm already excellent." Now let me ask, does this sound familiar? Has anyone here ever gone to a seminar and when you came out, you felt like you were suddenly amazing at something? Some of these seminars are super short, sometimes even free, just funnel events, but when you leave, you feel like you've mastered the field already. I see this especially in investing, in business, in real estate. People walk out thinking, I'm great now, I've got this. But in reality, they haven't even scratched the surface of beginner level knowledge. And if you don't even have the basics, how can you possibly succeed? If success were that easy, it would be so unfair to those who actually worked for years to achieve it. Because real success, it's the result of years of grinding, years of practice, years of study. Even if your teacher says to you, this is quick, this is easy, you'll succeed fast, look closely at their life. They themselves had to spend years. They didn't achieve it in just a few days or a few months. In psychology, there's a name for this. It's called the illusion of competence. That's what I'll call it here. The illusion of competence. And it shows up everywhere, including in reading books. A lot of us read a book, especially practical guides, and because in the book they use examples, illustrations, and situations, we read it and think, oh, this is easy. We solve the practice problems in the book and suddenly it feels like we know it all. But then when we go out and do it for real, it doesn't work. And let me give you the clearest example of this, the example of investing. In investment books, they'll show you charts. They'll explain resistance and support levels. They'll explain indicators. And in the book, the examples always look so clean and so logical. And you're like, wow, this is easy. Look, when the candle has this shape, that means it's going up. When it has that shape, it's going down. Simple. You read it and you're full of confidence. You think, there's nothing difficult about this. So you go out and you trade with real money. But then when you face real charts, you realize, wait a second, this doesn't look like the book. The book said it should go up, but it's going down. The book said it should go down, but it's going up. And just like that, you lose money. Sometimes a lot of money. Now, to be fair, that doesn't necessarily mean the book was wrong. To apply knowledge, you need to see the bigger picture. You need to connect factors, put them together, analyze deeply, and allow time for things to sink in. But many people don't do that. Instead, they read just chapter 1. And already they think, this is enough, let's apply it now. And then they jump into trading with real money. And of course they crash. That's the illusion of competence. That's the false sense of mastery we get from reading something and mistaking recognition for real skill. It's the same with books like How to Win Friends and Influence People. There's that tip in there. Compliment first, criticize after. And honestly, a lot of people apply this in such a clumsy, awkward way. To the point where personally, I get nervous now whenever someone compliments me at the start of a conversation. Because I already know what's coming next, the criticism. Not everyone, of course, but it feels like there's a common pattern with these people, my friends. The way they apply what they learn is clumsy, and honestly, it's completely wrong. Some people might give a compliment, but it's like one compliment against 9 or 10 criticisms. And you know what? The compliments, they sound like they came straight out of a textbook. Robotic, mechanical. But the criticisms, those come from the heart, from passion, from desire. And to me, that feels so strange, so awkward. They just criticize endlessly. But here's the thing. If you really apply it the right way, like the book says, and if you truly master it, then you've got to put your heart into it. Praise in the right way, and when it comes to criticism, be gentle, be subtle. Only then can you get something close to what How to Win Friends and Influence People is really about. So when we take knowledge we haven't mastered yet, when we haven't really reflected on it, meditated on it, or fully understood it, but we rush to apply it, it ends up doing harm. And the harm can be serious. Losing money, losing relationships, losing face, many, many things. That's the illusion of expertise. I call it the trap of I'm an expert. Let me give you another example. Is there anyone here doing business and running Facebook ads? You go on YouTube, you watch a tutorial, right? And it looks so simple. You just target this audience, put in some money, click run, and it works. That's it. You just upload some images and suddenly running ads doesn't look hard at all. People say it's tough, but when you look at it, where's the difficulty? So after watching that video, you feel totally inspired, pumped up, and you start running ads for real. And then, boom, you fail. Some people fail right at the step of entering their card information. Sometimes Facebook doesn't even accept the card, or in some cases, you finish setting everything up, but the money doesn't get charged. That situation is actually kind of funny. Your money is sitting there. You're practically begging Facebook, "Come on, please just take my money so my ad can run." But 2-3 days pass, and not a single dollar is charged, and you don't even know why. That's the moment when it hits you. Wow, this is actually hard. You realize you're not an expert at all. You only thought you were. That's the illusion. You read a book, and everything looks so smooth. You watch a video, and everything looks effortless. So you think you've got it all figured out. But no, that's just an illusion, and you need to avoid falling for that illusion. Because like I said, there's a very high chance you'll fail. And when you fail, the one who pays the price is you. Imagine this. You pick up some half-baked knowledge about real estate, then you take your money and buy some property. If things go wrong, who pays the price? You do, right? Or you dabble in investing with shallow knowledge, put your money in, and suffer heavy losses. Who takes the hit? You do. Or you learn some communication techniques, and then you try to apply them. In the end, your family, your relatives, your friends, they start avoiding you. And you're left wondering, wait, I complimented them first before I criticized, so why do they still dislike me? That's why one of my learning principles is this. Before you apply something, you have to let it sink in. It has to seep into your bones before you can put it into practice. Never go out and try to apply something when your understanding of it is still vague or foggy. Just learning it is not enough. You have to let it sink in. You need to let it sink in until you become fluent in it, until it becomes second nature, a reflex. And that takes time. You have to practice, experiment, reflect, test things out. Only then can you really apply it. And even then, success is not guaranteed. But that's still better than reading just a few pages or watching a few lectures or a video, getting all fired up and then rushing to act, only to make mistakes and hurt yourself in the process. That's not worth it, my friends. So now let's make this simple. How do we really let what we learned sink in? It's actually very easy. One way is to recall what you've learned. In fact, I've mentioned this before in earlier episodes, the whole idea of letting knowledge really sink in. I've been talking about this for years now. Today is just a review. The first method is recall. What does that mean? It means after you read some material, you close it, and then you try to remember what you just learned. And you repeat that process many times. You keep doing it until one day you can recall the knowledge instantly, smoothly, almost effortlessly. That's when you know it has a flavor, when it has really soaked in. At that point, you've got a certain level of understanding. And when you put it into practice, it works a lot more effectively. Now, I'm not saying that guarantees success. But I can tell you this. It's a whole lot better than learning something half-baked and then rushing to apply it. So, method 1 is recall. Method 2, this one's even better, is teaching it to someone else. For example, you read a book, close it, and then try to explain it to another person. Or you can even give a little speech to yourself, pretending someone is sitting in front of you listening. If you're able to teach it to another person, that proves you've understood it. But if after a few sentences you freeze up and it feels stiff, like you can't explain it clearly, then that's your signal. Open the book again. Read more. If you can't explain it smoothly, then you're not ready to apply it in real life. The third method, this is one I personally use a lot, is doing exercises. You can check out my video, Learning Well Despite Age or Talent, on YouTube, where I explain this very clearly. And I believe this is real learning. It means when you learn something, you practice it more than you just study the theory. Maybe 1 part theory, but 9 or 10 parts exercises. Of course, these are practice exercises, so they don't cause any harm. And that's the beauty of it. For me, when I think of learning, I always think in 3 parts. First is theory, second is practice exercises, and third is real application. And I never accept the idea of learning theory and then jumping straight into real-life application. No, my mind doesn't accept that kind of thinking. For me personally, it always has to be theory first, then exercises. And this middle step, you have to do a lot of it over and over again until it becomes second nature. Only after that do you move on to real application. That middle step, the exercises, is what ensures that you really understand, that you've practiced enough before applying it in real life. And when you do it that way, the results are so much more effective. You can go back to that earlier video to review it if you want. So those are the 3 ways to escape a trap. The trap of, I'm already an expert. If you can get past this trap, as well as the first one I talked about, the trap of the perfect material, then almost certainly many of the obstacles you've faced for years in your learning journey will be removed. You'll be able to overcome them much more smoothly. I really hope this episode, along with part 1 of this series, can give you some answers and provide you with real support, so you can learn something faster, more effectively, and avoid the unnecessary risks that come from rushing to apply knowledge when you haven't yet reached the right level of mastery to do it well. I hope we won't be naive about that anymore. Of course, real learning doesn't come from just 1 or 2 videos. It's a whole body of knowledge, a whole set of experiences. Sometimes it takes back and forth reinforcement to make sure we really build strong learning skills. Because in today's world, if you don't learn, how do you survive? Everything requires learning. Even if you want to make TikToks or start some kind of job, you've got to learn. Right now, everything comes down to education. The one who knows more, the one who can do more, who can take on harder challenges, that's the one who earns more money. It has always been that way. There's no other path. So in this day and age, if someone looks down on learning, they won't grow, right? That's why I hope you'll start to see learning from a very serious perspective and make it a real priority in your life. Thank you so much for your attention and for listening. Goodbye for now, and I'll see you in the next episode.